Hi everyone, today we're going to cover a game in which the white pieces literally took the black king for a walk of shame. So, let's get into it. So, our players in this game are Wei Yi and Lazaro Bruzon Batista. You may not know the second player. I also haven't heard much about him lately. I don't think he's playing much games. Wei Yi you probably should have heard of because he's in the semifinals of the damn World Cup. And yeah, I haven't actually covered the World Cup. I will post a few videos on that a few days later. And now let's get into the game. E4 by Wei Yi, now C5 by Batista. Of course, the Sicilian. Knight f3, now E6, the French, which we haven't really covered that much. Knight C3, A6, D4, Bishop E2, rather. Knight C6, D4 takes 6, and Queen C7. So we have gone into what's known as the Taimanov. The pawns are acting as wedges and as spikes, which stop this knight from going ever forward. But these dark squares are a little bit weak. That's the drawback. Now, short castles, Knight f6, Bishop E3, Bishop goes to E7, and F4. So this line is simply about kingside play. I'm just gonna play over here. Now, the pawn goes to D6, and now we have what's known as this Scheveningen structure. We wanted to stop E5, and now these pawns with the pawn on A6 act as total spikes, and you really would have a hard time breaking this through. Now, the king goes to H1, always a very useful move when you're trying to, play F4, and this diagonal, the king gets off of this. Short castle is now Queen E1. Another useful move and thematic idea in such positions, whenever you push your f-pawn, a very nice idea would be to play your queen to E1, slide it over there, and now use the opened diagonal, because the pawn is moved, to go to G3 or H4 with your queen. Knight takes knight, bishop takes knight, and B5, trying to get the bishop on B7. Queen G3, bishop B7, and A3. So we just simply stop B4, which was threatening. You kind of double down there. You kind of double down because B5 is hanging. So Rook D8. Rook D1, and yeah, this is all theory until now. Rook D7 is played, perhaps trying to, maybe double rooks, maybe trying to play for D5. And now the move, bishop to D3, sort of discouraging this move because it will just totally awaken the bishop. And this was the final book move. And yeah, this just totally tells you about how much theory there exists in the Sicilian. Now, the queen goes to D8. So this is perhaps where black's play goes a bit downhill. The correct move here is to play the thematic idea, Rook to E8, which, it's a bit difficult to explain it to you sometimes. It's just perhaps to just give this F8 square to the king, and in case they're trying to sacrifice, for example, something, because they may go here with their queen and try to go on H7, sack for the knight, and then go for H7, then you have options of running away, right, oh my god, like this. It is a bit complicated, but hang on for a second. The queen goes to D8 instead, and now queen to H3, the idea I said. Now you're literally threatening the move pawn to E5, ending the game on the spot. So, the pawn goes to G6. This is not the way to cut it. In this position, you had to play Rook E8. And try to perhaps run away with your king if necessary. But the move G6 is played, and how do we punish that? We open the position. And now you see the pieces are really cramped, right? You do put spikes into your position, and I cannot easily infiltrate, but you cannot have active pieces yourself. That's a drawback. Pawn to E5, desperately trying to keep the position close. Bishop E3, and Rook E8. Finally, Rook E8. You're not doing much about tension, so what about I take? Pawn takes, and I'm going to play Knight D5. On the surface, this looks like a very bad move. It just simply gives up a pawn. It's like a beginner calculation mistake, but Wei Yi is not a beginner, of course. Batista, however, was suspicious, like you may be, and said, well, I see free pawn, I take free pawn. But this is a huge blunder. Why is that? Because we will infiltrate with the tower. We sack the rook. Great. The king takes because there was literally mate threatened. Queen E7 check, king here, and now pawn takes. In these lines, you just have to be so careful. For example, if you just take one misstep, I'll play Knight F6, and you are just crushed because you have no attack. So, E takes in D5 first, now the king takes. And if you take notice, this king is literally running away. It's running away. How can you do anything? You've already given up a rook. Your pieces seem a bit uncoordinated. How can you do this, right? There's only one move, right? We've already given up a rook, so why not we give up our bishop? That's the way. That's the way we do it. The king takes. And now the idea is not even to play bishop b6, because that would be losing. Because, I don't know, after you go king d5, this is too much material given away for the queen. This is too much. It's literally too much. And you cannot survive with this. So, let me go back a step. After king takes on e4, we played a very strong move, queen to f7. Why did we do that? We're literally threatening to move the bishop anywhere on the board except of d4 because the king would take and deliver checkmate. Because the queen just cuts up this and also just cuts up every single square on the f file. There's only one move to defend, bishop to f6. And I would just move back a step. Here the strongest move was the move c4, which would have actually forced mate in 9. Well, the line is actually a bit complicated. If you take the pawn, for example, I can now take, because if you go here, I can go queen f7 check, and I can deliver mate on c4. This was the stronger way, but of course, it's more than understandable that way you didn't find this. So queen f7, now the bishop goes to f6, the only move to defend, cutting off the queen from the f file, across the f file, now bishop d2 check, and yeah, Wei repeats once. Because, you know, when you really are in such a king hunt, it's very difficult and very risky. You have to, you know, get more time sometimes. I would assume that this game was played on an increment, with an increment per move, and the way you required that time to calculate deeper. The queen goes to b3. This is the correct move, the only move also. The king goes to f5, and the key thing here is to make sure the queen doesn't move, because it has to cover the escape square. Very important lesson. Never let the king run away. I mean, it seems very natural. I mean, what's more natural than that? You want to trap the queen, trap the king literally. But that is very important. Do not move the pieces which cut off the escape. Rook f1, that is what we played. The only move, again. The king goes to g4. Of course, on e4, it would have been mated by queen d3. Now the queen goes to d3 anyway. So now the king's no longer in touch with e6. We move our queen away for other duties. We're trying to literally go queen to g6, which will just be gg in, I think, 1 or 2 moves. The bishop takes down with g2. A very, very nice idea by Bautista, which says, okay, I mean, you've given up a rook and you've also given up a bishop. Why not I give you a bishop back and try to activate my pieces in the meantime? Well, Wei says, fine, king takes, and I play king to g1, the only move, because if you go to f2, the rook is blocked. Now the bishop goes to g5. Another very tricky move, because if you take this bishop and get a bit greedy, I mean, the king starts to run away. You can give them perpetual check, right? You can give them perpetual check. You can even win the rook. But this endgame is a draw. I mean, if you try to get greedy even more than that and take this pawn, somehow this position is a little bit better for black. And yeah, you gotta ask Stockfish, not me. I have literally no idea why. This 0.1. But after the bishop to g5, we play queen to e2 check. Again, the only move. I don't know. I mean, I've lost count of how many only moves they have played. King goes to h4, and now bishop to f2 check, king h3. Look at this. The king is literally threatening checkmate queen g2, right? It's like the king is, you know, walking goofily and says, yeah, I'm walking away from the checks. Haha, you're checkmated if you just do not take notice. But yeah, I mean, Wei didn't come here to get checkmated, didn't pull all of this off. And plays bishop to e1, opens up the rook, which is literally what's going to checkmate you. And Bautista simply resigned to this position. Why? I'll first give you a sample line, queen e7. Let's say they keep checking, right? The king goes here, the queen goes to b7. Now we play check. We counter check your opponent. Our opponent. The king has to go to g4. Now we unpin our rook with check. The king has to go here, and now we use our unpinned rook to deliver check and checkmate. Beautiful teamwork, really. And also, there's also another line, which is the move rook f8, which is offered by the engine. Yeah, I cannot really much explain it. Perhaps just stopping rook f3 ideas forever. And now here you just simply take the rook. And now there are two ways, right? The queen either moves off of the 8th rank or of the from the long diagonal. If the queen moves, for example, to b7, we're just simply going to play rook h8, and after you block with all your pieces, it's just checkmate. However, if, for example, I don't know, the queen takes on f2, moves away from the long diagonal, we simply have to move queen to g2, delivering checkmate. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was it. Crazy. Thanks for watching this far. I hope you enjoyed this video and perhaps learned something from it. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.